I arrived at the Griddle House around 11:30 on Sunday morning, exhausted from a 6-hour shift that started before the sun came up. Every muscle in my body ached, my shoulders were tight, and my back felt like it might give out. All I could think about was crawling into bed and maybe eating some leftover Chinese food from the refrigerator. But my wife had texted me 3 separate times about this brunch with her friends. First message came at 8 in the morning, then another at 9:30, then a final one at quarter to 11 with 3 question marks attached. I'd completely forgotten about the whole thing during my shift, never even glanced at my phone while I was working. Everything in me wanted to drive straight home and collapse, but I went anyway. That's what you do in a marriage, right? You show up even when you're running on empty. I stopped at home first, took a 5-minute shower, threw on a clean shirt and jeans, then drove across town to the restaurant. Parking was impossible as usual on a Sunday afternoon, so I ended up 4 blocks away and had to walk. The walk gave me time to mentally prepare for the role I always played at these events. The husband who never quite fit in with her social circle, the guy who worked with his hands while everyone else worked in offices with fancy titles. I could actually hear them laughing from halfway down the block. That high-pitched theatrical laughter that's meant to be heard. I should have recognized that as a warning sign right then and turned around, but I didn't. The outdoor seating area was absolutely packed with the typical weekend crowd. Mimosas at every table, overpriced egg dishes, avocado toast that cost more than I earned in 2 hours of actual work. Young couples were taking photos of their food instead of eating it. Groups of women in designer sunglasses were gossiping. The whole scene was peak Sunday brunch culture. My wife was already seated at a corner table with 4 of her friends. I recognized all of them from various dinners and social events we'd attended over the years. She didn't stand up when she spotted me walking over, didn't wave enthusiastically or smile. She just lifted her hand slightly and pointed toward an empty chair at the end of the table, like I was late to her party, which I suppose I was by her standards. I sat down in that chair, which had obviously been added as an afterthought. The conversation barely paused for my arrival. They were deeply absorbed in discussing some upcoming girls' trip to a resort, talking about spa reservations, debating which boutique hotel had the best pool area, wondering if they should rent a private house instead. The kind of trip that would cost more money than I made in an entire month. I caught the server's attention and ordered coffee. Just black coffee, nothing fancy. Nobody at the table bothered to ask how my morning shift had gone. Nobody asked why I looked so tired or what I'd been doing since dawn. The conversation just flowed around me as if I were a piece of furniture that didn't merit acknowledgement. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my messages for a minute. Nothing urgent, just some work-related stuff. I put it away and tried to tune into whatever they were discussing. Something about poolside cabanas and bottle service. My wife was extremely animated, talking with her hands, her mimosa glass sloshing dangerously with each gesture. One of the women at the table, Chelsea, finally acknowledged my existence. She had short blonde hair, and I think she worked in real estate or property management, something along those lines. "How's work treating you?" she asked, though her tone made it painfully obvious she was just being polite and filling awkward silence. Before I could formulate any kind of answer, my wife interrupted. "He's always working," she said without even looking in my direction, just took another long sip from her mimosa. I basically live like a single woman at this point anyway. The entire table erupted in laughter. All 4 of them, like she'd just delivered the punchline to some brilliant joke instead of saying something genuinely cruel. Like it was hilarious that I worked hard to keep us financially stable. "Girl, I would never tolerate that," another friend said. I didn't know her name and didn't particularly care to learn it. She wore expensive sunglasses pushed up on top of her head and had that specific shade of blonde hair that costs hundreds of dollars to maintain at a salon. "Seriously though, life is way too short," a third friend added, nodding in agreement. I just sipped my coffee when the server brought it over and kept my mouth shut. This dynamic was nothing new to me. I was completely used to being the joke at these gatherings. The husband who worked too much, who wasn't successful enough in the ways that mattered to them, who didn't quite belong in their world of bottomless mimosa brunches and designer handbags. The fact that I personally paid 70% of our household bills and covered most of the mortgage payment every single month wasn't interesting enough to bring up in conversation, I guess. They moved on to different topics. Shopping at some trendy boutique in a neighborhood I'd never been to. Gossip about people whose names I didn't recognize. Complaints about their own husbands and boyfriends. Stories about how someone's partner forgot an anniversary. How another one never wanted to go out to social events anymore. The mimosas just kept flowing. My wife was on her third glass by the time food started arriving at the table. Plates of eggs, Benedict and avocado dishes, and artisanal bread that probably cost $15 a slice. I hadn't ordered any food. The server looked at me expectantly when she came around, but I waved her off. Wasn't hungry at all. I just wanted to survive this ordeal and get home where I could catch a few hours of sleep before I had to start thinking about Monday morning. The conversation continued without any input from me. My wife's voice got progressively louder with each drink, more animated and theatrical. She was performing now, I suddenly realized. Her friends were the audience, and she was putting on a show for them. That's when she dropped the bomb. My wife leaned back dramatically in her chair, gesturing with her glass like she was about to make some grand proclamation. Her voice carried across not just our table, but probably the three nearest tables as well. Honestly, I give this marriage maybe 6 more months, tops. The laughter was instant and explosive. All 4 friends burst out laughing like she'd just delivered the funniest joke they'd ever heard in their entire lives. The kind of obnoxious laughter that makes other diners turn their heads to look over, but she wasn't finished. She was clearly enjoying the attention. I mean, let's be completely real here, she continued. We're on totally different life trajectories at this point. She said it like she was discussing some business merger that wasn't working out anymore. Clinical, detached, amused by the whole situation. More laughter erupted from the table. More enthusiastic agreement and nodding heads. You have been so patient for so long, one of them said, shaking her head sympathetically. Way longer than I would have been in your situation, another friend chimed in, actually raising her mimosa glass like she was toasting my wife's incredible patience and forbearance. Girl, you genuinely deserve so much better, the third one added supportively. I carefully set my coffee cup down on the table. My hands were perfectly steady even though my heart was pounding so hard I could feel the pulse in my throat. I looked slowly around the table, taking in the whole scene. All 5 women were laughing together. My wife was positioned right in the center, absolutely soaking up the attention, making these exaggerated gestures with her free hand. None of them bothered to glance in my direction. I wasn't even really present to them. I was just a concept, an abstract punchline. The disappointing husband who would eventually be replaced with someone better. Something clicked into place in my head right then. Not shock exactly, not even genuine surprise. More like sudden clarity, like a door either opening or closing, hard to say which. But everything became crystal clear in that moment. This wasn't the first time she'd made comments like this about our marriage. This wasn't even the first time she'd said this exact thing to these specific people. The way they all laughed so quickly, so enthusiastically, without any hesitation. This was clearly a familiar topic of conversation for them, a recurring joke that came up regularly. I'd been the punchline for quite a while now. I just hadn't been physically present to hear it before this moment. The laughter finally started to die down gradually. I waited patiently until it was almost completely quiet, until they were all taking sips of their drinks and catching their breath from laughing so hard. Then I spoke up, keeping my voice calm and level like I was commenting on the weather forecast. 6 months, I said. The table went absolutely silent. Completely and totally silent. My wife's confident smile faltered immediately. Her hand, holding the mimosa glass, froze in midair, halfway to her mouth. You're being pretty generous with that timeline, I said, maintaining that exact same calm tone. Personally, I give it closer to 6 minutes. For maybe 2 or 3 seconds, nobody at the table moved a muscle. They thought I was making some kind of joke, trying to play along with their humor. Then I reached down and deliberately pulled my wedding ring off my finger. The metal band slid easily over my knuckle. I'd actually lost quite a bit of weight over the past few months. Probably from stress, from working all those extra hours to pay for her lifestyle, while she attended bottomless brunches and complained about me to her friends. I placed the ring very deliberately right in the center of the table, positioned perfectly between 2 mimosa glasses. The small metallic sound it made when it contacted the wooden table seemed impossibly loud in the sudden silence. A tiny clink that somehow echoed. Then I stood up from my chair. The legs scraped loudly against the concrete patio floor. Still, nobody at the table spoke a single word. The silence was absolute now, total and complete. I could hear absolutely everything happening around us. Conversations floating over from other tables, the clinking sound of silverware against plates, someone's cell phone ringing nearby. traffic noise from the boulevard, birds chirping in the trees overhead. But at our specific table, there was nothing. Nobody moved, nobody breathed. I looked directly at each of her friends for a brief moment, making deliberate eye contact with every single one of them. They all immediately looked away, stared down at their plates, their drinks, examined their fingernails anywhere except at me. Then finally, I looked straight at my wife. Her face had gone completely white first, then flushed an angry red color, blotchy. "Enjoy your brunch," I said simply. "What?" My wife's voice came out strangled and panicked. "Babe, I was obviously joking." She reached across the table toward my arm, nearly knocking over someone's water glass in the process. I took a step backward, moving out of her reach. "It was just girl talk." Her voice had this desperate edge to it now. "Don't be so dramatic about this." I looked at her friends one final time. They were all staring intensely at their plates now, at their laps, at the remains of their expensive breakfast food. The confident, laughing group from 30 seconds ago had completely evaporated. They looked like they desperately wanted to disappear, to be anywhere else on Earth except at this table. "6 months is you being generous," I said, still using that same eerily calm voice that didn't sound like it belonged to me. "6 minutes is me being honest. The ring is completely paid for. Keep it or sell it, I genuinely don't care. I'm done." I turned and walked straight through the crowded restaurant. Didn't rush, didn't storm out dramatically, just walked at a perfectly normal pace, weaving between tables. I heard my wife call out my name once, then heard the loud scraping sound of a chair being pushed back quickly as she stood up. Someone at a nearby table looked over, startled by all the commotion. But I didn't look back, didn't turn around, just kept walking steadily through the restaurant, past the host stand at the entrance, through the front door, and out onto the sunny sidewalk. The bright LA sunshine hit me like a physical wall. I put on my sunglasses and started walking in the direction of where I'd parked 4 blocks away. I didn't run, didn't rush, just walked at a normal pace, like I had somewhere to be and was running slightly late. Like this was just any other ordinary Sunday afternoon. Behind me, I heard the restaurant door open again. Heard her voice calling my name. Louder this time, more desperate and frantic. But I didn't turn around, just kept walking forward. After about half a block, I couldn't hear her voice anymore. Either she'd stopped following me, or the traffic noise had completely drowned her out. Didn't really matter which. My truck was sitting exactly where I'd left it, 4 blocks away on a quiet side street. I unlocked it, climbed in, immediately locked all the doors behind me, and just sat there for a moment with my hands resting on the steering wheel. That's when the shaking finally started. My hands began trembling uncontrollably. The adrenaline that I'd been somehow holding back hit me all at once like a freight train. My chest felt tight and constricted. My heart was absolutely pounding. My breathing came in shallow gasps. I forced myself to take slow, deliberate breaths, in through the nose, out through the mouth, something I'd actually learned at some work stress management seminar years ago. It helped a little bit. 2 or 3 minutes passed like that. Then my phone started buzzing insistently in my pocket. I pulled it out and looked at the screen, her name flashing. I declined the call immediately. I couldn't stay parked here. She knew exactly what my truck looked like. She might come looking for me. I started the engine and drove away from there. Not toward home, though. Didn't want to go there yet. I ended up at a Target parking lot about 2 miles away. Pulled into a far corner spot, away from all the other cars. Cut the engine and just sat there. My phone absolutely would not stop buzzing. I looked at the screen. 8 messages already, all from her. "Where did you go? Come back right now. This is ridiculous. You're embarrassing me. Please, can we just talk? Answer me." Then the calls started coming in again. I let the first one ring all the way out, watched her name flash on my screen until it went to voicemail. Immediately, a second call came through. I let that one go to voicemail too. Then a third. A new text message appeared. "Please, can we just talk?" I stared at that message for a long moment. The please was lowercase, rushed, clearly desperate, different from the tone of her earlier messages. I could picture her typing it with shaking hands, tears probably streaming down her face, mascara getting smeared. Her friends probably all gone by now, scattered to the wind, leaving her alone with the check and the complete mess she'd created. I typed back exactly one line. Nothing left to talk about. Hit send. The phone rang instantly, like she'd been sitting there, waiting with the phone in her hand for any response at all from me. I stared at her name on the screen for several seconds. Against every instinct telling me not to, I answered the call. "Where are you?" Her voice was thick and distorted from crying. I could hear traffic noise in the background. She was probably still somewhere near the restaurant. "You cannot be serious right now. Everyone is staring at me." "That's not my problem anymore," I said. My voice sounded completely flat, emotionless, dead. "You're seriously throwing away our entire marriage over one joke? Over one stupid comment I made?" "You're the one who threw it away," I said. I just made it official. "Where are you?" she asked again, even more desperate this time. Like if she could just physically see me, talk to me in person, face to face, she could somehow fix this entire situation. "Just come back to the restaurant. We can talk about this like adults. Doesn't matter where I am. I'll be by the house tomorrow afternoon to get my things." "What? No, you can't just—" I hung up on her mid-sentence, stared at the phone in my hand for several seconds. Then I went into settings and blocked her number completely. The screen displayed the confirmation message. "This contact has been blocked." I set the phone down on the passenger seat and leaned my head back against the headrest. Sat there in that Target parking lot for another solid 10 minutes, just breathing slowly, trying to process what I'd actually just done. My marriage was over. 5 years together, finished in 6 minutes, exactly like I'd said. Eventually, I started the truck again and drove. Still not home, though. Couldn't face that house right now, couldn't deal with all her stuff everywhere. The photos covering the walls, the entire life we'd supposedly built together that she'd apparently been planning to demolish for months. I drove to Sherman Oaks instead, to my friend Derek's apartment. Derek and I had known each other since sophomore year of high school, played on the same basketball team back then, stayed close friends ever since. He was one of those completely solid, dependable guys who didn't talk much but was always there when you needed him. I knocked on his door around 1 in the afternoon. I could hear a TV going inside, football game playing. It was Sunday, of course he was watching football. He opened the door holding a beer, wearing a Rams jersey and old sweatpants. He took one look at my face and immediately stepped aside without saying a word. "What happened?" he asked once I was inside. "Need a place to crash for a few days," I said. "You got it, man." He gestured toward the refrigerator. "Grab yourself a beer." I did exactly that. We went back to the living room and I collapsed on his couch. It was old and extremely comfortable and smelled like pizza and beer. Normal bachelor apartment stuff. The place was small but reasonably clean, 1 bedroom, good enough for 1 person living alone. We watched the game for quite a while without talking. Derek knew instinctively when to push for information and when to just let things be. This was clearly a let things be situation. Around 6 o'clock during a commercial break, he pulled out his phone and ordered pizza from the place down the street. 2 large pizzas, pepperoni, and sausage. The pizza arrived during the 3rd quarter. We ate in comfortable silence, just sitting on his couch, watching men in helmets run into each other on TV. Finally, during halftime, Derek muted the television and looked over at me. "Want to talk about it?" he asked quietly. I gave him the shortened version. The brunch, the joke about 6 months, her friends all laughing, putting the ring on the table, walking out of the restaurant. Derek was quiet for a moment, took a long drink from his beer, set it down carefully. "She said that stuff in public," he said slowly, "in the middle of a crowded restaurant, with actual witnesses present." I nodded confirmation. And all her friends were sitting right there. They all heard everything. "They were all laughing," I said, like it was the funniest thing they'd ever heard in their lives. Derek shook his head slowly. "Good riddance, man. You absolutely did the right thing." That night I made the serious mistake of checking my phone before attempting to sleep. 34 missed calls, 52 text messages, all from my wife using her friend's phone since I'd blocked her actual number. I could tell which number belonged to which friend based purely on the tone of the messages. Some were angry and accusatory. Some were pleading and desperate. Some tried to sound completely reasonable and logical, like they were the voice of sanity. One message was from Chelsea. That was really harsh. She was just venting. Everyone does that. You're being completely unreasonable. I didn't respond to any of them. Just scrolled through slowly, reading each one carefully, feeling more and more certain with each message that I'd made absolutely the right choice. This wasn't love. This wasn't even basic respect. This was someone panicking because their carefully constructed plan had exploded in their face. I turned my phone completely off. The screen went black. I lay down on Derek's couch with a blanket he'd given me and stared up at the ceiling, trying unsuccessfully to sleep. It didn't work well at all. My mind kept replaying that exact moment, hearing her voice saying, "I give this marriage 6 more months, tops." The laughter from her friends, the way absolutely none of them had even looked at me. I must have eventually fallen asleep at some point because I woke up to bright sunlight streaming through Derek's windows and my phone buzzing loudly. I turned it back on at some point during the night without really thinking about it. 6:47 in the morning. A text from an unknown number I didn't recognize. "This is Amanda from yesterday's brunch. Can we talk? It's important." Amanda. I had to think for a second, then I remembered. The quiet one from the brunch table. She'd sat at the far end, barely said anything the entire time, just listened while the others talked and laughed and drank their mimosas. I hesitated for a moment, then showed the text to Derek when he emerged from his bedroom. His hair was sticking up at odd angles. He was wearing boxer shorts and a ratty old t-shirt. He read the message and shrugged. "Might be worth hearing what she has to say. Could be useful information for you." I typed back, "About what?" The response came immediately. Not over text. Coffee, a 8 a.m. at Vanna's Starbucks on Ventura Boulevard. I agreed to meet her. Got cleaned up in Derek's bathroom, borrowed a clean shirt from him since I didn't have any of my own stuff with me. Drove to the Starbucks location and got there about 10 minutes early. Ordered a black coffee and sat at a corner table. Amanda showed up right at 8 o'clock exactly. She looked totally different than she had at brunch. Less polished and put together. No makeup, hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, wearing jeans and a plain sweatshirt. She looked like she hadn't gotten much sleep either. She sat down directly across from me without ordering anything for herself, folded her hands on the table, and looked me straight in the eye. "I couldn't sleep at all last night," she said. "What happened yesterday? You need to know something. Several things, actually." I waited without saying anything, took a sip of my coffee. "This wasn't the first time she said stuff like that about you," Amanda said. Her voice was quiet but completely steady. "She's been talking about divorce for months now, since April at minimum. Probably longer. She told all of us, the entire friend group. She's been actively consulting with a divorce lawyer." My stomach went cold. "For months? How do you know this?" "She told us directly. The whole friend group knew. She told us all about it." Amanda's hands were clasped tightly together. She said she had a strategy planned out. Said she wanted you to be the one to end the marriage. Said it would help her legal case in divorce court. I set my coffee cup down carefully. "Help her case, how exactly?" "If you left first, if you were the one to walk out of the marriage, she could claim abandonment in court, make you look like the bad guy in the divorce proceedings." She had the whole thing completely planned out. Amanda reached into her purse and pulled out her phone. "She's been telling us stuff about you for weeks. Months, actually. That you were controlling, that you were financially withholding money, that you were emotionally distant and cold, making you sound absolutely terrible to everyone. But my husband," Amanda continued, "he knows you. Not well personally, but he knows people who know you through work connections and mutual friends, that sort of thing. And everything she was describing to us didn't match up at all with what he'd heard about you from other people. So last night, after everything that happened, I asked him directly about it. He said you were nothing like what she'd been describing. Said you were a genuinely good guy, worked hard, reliable, and honest." She turned her phone screen around so I could see it. "Yesterday, when you left that wedding ring on the table and just walked out, something clicked for me. That took real courage, real strength. And she clearly didn't expect it at all. She thought you'd just take it, like you always did apparently. That's what she told us repeatedly, that you were predictable, that you would never actually leave her." I glanced down at her phone and saw screenshots of a group chat. My wife's number stood out right away. As I scrolled, the messages hit like punches, talking about her exit strategy, which lawyer to use, how to split things up, even joking about playing the long game. They were mocking me. Then one message made my jaw tighten. "He's so predictable, he'll just take it and not fight. By the time he figures it out, it'll be too late." "Why are you showing me this?" I asked quietly. Amanda began forwarding every screenshot to my phone. "My husband went through almost the same thing," she said. "His ex tried the same playbook. It nearly ruined him, emotionally and financially. I couldn't sit by and watch it happen again. You deserve to know what's really going on. My phone buzzed over and over, 7 screenshots in total, each one worse than the last. She's going to make you the villain, Amanda warned. Tell everyone you abandoned her, that you were cruel, that you blindsided her. She's already spinning that story. I saw messages last night. She's painting herself as the sufferer. I nodded slowly, trying to take it all in. Would you be willing to testify if it gets ugly? Absolutely, Amanda said without hesitation. What she's doing is calculated and wrong. I won't be part of it. Won't this blow up your friendship with her, with that whole group? Amanda gave a sad smile. I already left their chat last night. I'm done with them. My husband's right. Those aren't real friends. We talked a bit longer. She gave me her personal number and said to call if I needed anything, statements, info, whatever. Then she left to go home to her family. I sat in that Starbucks for a long time, staring at my phone, those screenshots still open. It wasn't some dumb brunch joke. It was a full plan, months in the making. A strategy to leave me on her own terms, walk away with sympathy, money, and control, leaving me as the bad guy. That plan was finished now. By that afternoon, I was sitting in a Beverly Hills law office. Derek had referred me to his divorce attorney, Ms. Patterson. The consult wasn't cheap, but it was worth every dollar. She was calm, direct, older, completely professional. She looked through each screenshot without a flicker of emotion. You made a clean, public break, she said. She's been setting this up for months. Legally, that's very much in your favor. She laid out the plan. File first, immediately. Don't give my wife the chance to act first. Ask for a division of assets based on proof of deception. File is no fault, but keep the evidence ready in case she lies. The whole thing would take about 4 to 6 months. From now on, Ms. Patterson would handle all communication. My job was to cut contact completely. I walked out of her office feeling light maybe, or just empty. That same day I opened a new bank account, updated my paycheck info at work, and got a P.O. box. By Tuesday morning, the papers were served. That afternoon, Derek's phone rang. It was her, trying to reach me. Please, just tell him to talk to me, she begged over speaker. I shook my head. He's got nothing to say to you, Derek said flatly, and hung up. On Wednesday, I went to the house to grab my things. Ms. Patterson had everything coordinated, and I brought Derek along. We also had a police escort just in case. Her car was in the driveway. She opened the door before I could knock. She looked drained, no makeup, messy hair, wearing sweatpants. A far cry from the woman who'd smiled at brunch. Can we please just, she started. The officer stepped in immediately. Ma'am, he's here for his belongings. Please let him do that. It took about 40 minutes. Clothes, laptop, tools, personal items. Derek helped load them into his truck. She stood in the doorway crying the whole time. When I passed her on the way out, she grabbed my arm. I didn't mean any of it, she said through tears. I was just showing off for them. I looked her straight in the eye. Then you showed them exactly who you are. I got in the truck and didn't look back. 2 weeks later, Amanda texted me an update. The brunch group had imploded after she'd told them the truth. 3 of the 4 friends dropped my wife immediately. Only Chelsea stayed loyal. Derek heard other things through mutual contacts. My wife had moved back in with her parents. She'd lost her job months ago, but never told me. That explained the whole setup. She'd been planning to protect herself financially before I found out. Her credit card debt was way higher than I ever knew. She'd been hiding a lot. She was gearing up to ambush you in court, Derek said. Amanda's evidence blew her whole plan apart. A month after that brunch, I packed up and left Derek's place for a small studio. It was clean, cheap, and only 20 minutes from work. I picked up extra shifts whenever I could and saved every spare dollar. My days became simple: work, gym, home, sleep. The strangest part was the calm that followed. I hadn't realized how draining that marriage had been until I was free from it. Somehow, my ex got my new number, probably through someone at work. One text popped up. I'm sorry, can we talk? I blocked her right away without replying. A week later, she showed up in my work parking lot. I spotted her car from a distance and called Ms. Patterson before going near mine. My lawyer sent a cease and desist letter. After that, she stopped reaching out. 3 months into the process, Ms. Patterson called with news. She's claiming you abandoned her financially. But the records show the opposite. You covered about 70% of expenses and earned most of the income. Her hidden job loss shows she was the one lying. The judge isn't buying her story. After that, things moved quickly. I kept my truck, personal stuff, and savings. She got the house, but it had barely any equity and she took on the full mortgage. She also kept her credit card debt. No alimony, clean break. We signed the papers in different rooms. I didn't see her that day. 4 months after that brunch, my boss pulled me aside. We're building a new team, lead role, better hours, salary instead of hourly. Interested? Yeah, definitely. 2 weeks later, it was official. First thing I did was move into a nicer apartment, an actual bedroom, a small patio. For the first time, felt like mine. One Saturday morning, I ran into Natalie from work while grocery shopping. I'd seen her around, but never talked much. She was joking with a friend in the produce aisle. She spotted me and said hi. We chatted casually, easy and light. She was funny, warm, didn't dig into personal stuff. Her friend conveniently left us alone. This might sound bold, Natalie said, but want to grab coffee after this? There's a cafe next door. I said yes. We talked for over an hour about work, movies, random things. The conversation just worked. Before leaving, she asked if I wanted to do it again. Maybe dinner next time. Definitely, I said. Over the next few weeks, we hung out. Dinners, movies, weekend hikes. Natalie was easy to be around. No drama, no games. One night she asked, "You doing okay? Like, really okay?" I thought for a second. Getting there. Some days are better than others. That's fair. Nah, she said. Take your time. I'm not going anywhere. It felt different. Real partnership instead of pretending. 6 months after that brunch, I saw Amanda at Target. She was with her kids and smiled when she noticed me. Hey, how's it going? We caught up a bit. Her husband's promotion, kids starting school. I heard things are going well for you, she said. I'm glad. Thanks for what you did, I said. It changed everything. Just did what was right, she said. And honestly, she's not someone I want around either. Before leaving, she looked at me closely. You look good, like really happy. She was right. Later, Derek told me he'd heard about my ex. Still with her parents, part-time retail, short failed relationship, still posting pity stories online that few people even read anymore. You don't care at all, do you? He asked. Not one bit, I said, and meant it. 7 months after that brunch, Natalie and I were cooking dinner together at my place. She chopped vegetables while I stirred sauce. Do you ever think about that day? She asked. Sometimes, I said. Not as much now. I tasted the sauce and smiled. Honestly, best thing that ever happened to me. How come? It made me stop settling, stop making excuses for someone who didn't respect me. Finally choose myself. Natalie smiled and went back to chopping. We ate on the patio later, city lights glowing in the distance. We talked and laughed easily. No tension, no games, just comfort, honesty, and presence. My phone buzzed with a work email. Work stuff? She asked. Yeah, nothing big. I put it away and stayed in the moment. Tomorrow, I'd go to the job I'd earned. Come home to the place I'd built. Maybe see Natalie, maybe not. Either way, I'd be fine, because I'd finally learned. You can't build a future with someone already planning to leave. You can't make someone respect you by loving them harder, and you can't win a game you didn't know you were playing. But you can walk away. Start fresh. Build something real. Not out of spite, but because you finally know you deserve better. And then you build that better life, one day at a time.